welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition, which is largely driven by responses that I got from my last video, which bore out entirely something I said right towards the end of it. So let's go over to the layout and I'll explain a bit more. At the end of the last video, I said how much I benefit from the comments that I get from people, and that the layout was immeasurably better by reason of the comments that people had made, and that in many areas the layout has changed from how it was because of the comments that I received. And in two separate ways, the truth of those comments were borne out within hours of the last video being released. One of them in relation to the issue that I raised about the new Pico wagons and their couplings. I'll come on to in a bit later in the video. But the one that really has helped me no end was a comment that I got from Arthur Marychurch, and I'll read out the whole comment. I don't often do that, but this is just brilliant. Stephen, an idea for integrating High Elven. Before the woodyard took over, the area was a quarry with the stone going out by barge. This gives you a complete rationale for a vertical bench cliff faces. Would also suffice as a rationale for the canal being built to there in the first place, as the woodyard would not justify the expense of canal building. Arthur. And my initial reply to Arthur was, "You're an absolute star," and I hold to that comment. You'll know that High Elven has caused me a problem repeatedly, not least how I would join High Elven to the rest of the board, but do it in a way that will allow me to get in and underneath. I don't want to be boring holes up through the baseboards, which are expensive to buy, and this is my first layout and by no means necessarily my last, so I don't want to start sticking holes in the baseboards, and I do need to be able to take this off or get access underneath. And the idea of it being a quarry really does work very well in all sorts of ways. It helps with the construction, not necessarily of wholly vertical cliff faces, but with being able to bring it down this height, which actually in real life isn't that high. I keep thinking this is some vast distance, but I don't think it is. It's 5 inches, which I think would come out at something around 70 foot, 80 foot, something like that, maybe not as much as that. And so actually 70 foot, would it be that much? Don't think it would even be that much. So I'm not looking as I'm going to be, miles deep this area. But obviously, if it was a gentle hill rolling down, it would have to project really quite far forward for that to be quite gentle. And of course, the idea of quarrying means that there's been human intervention to bring a quite sharp end. And it got, had to think about the backstory and the fact that the canal has been built. Well, canals were built up to the early part of the 19th century. There was some canal building thereafter, but the bulk of them were done because railways tended to intercede and very largely put a lot of canals out of use. So the backstory is that flint, either flint or stone, haven't made my mind up, was discovered here, which was worth quarrying. And a company was formed in the late 1700s, early 1800s. They built the canal in to be able to take the stone away and started work on the quarrying. But two of the directors thought it would be much nicer to up and run off with all the money, leaving the quarry only partially exhausted, which was a good thing because otherwise High Elven wouldn't exist. And the demise of the company happened at or around the time that the railway came and set up shop in High Elven and put the canal out of business, and the quarrying was never resumed, but it bears the scars. That's the backstory. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to stick with it. So what does that mean in terms of practical consequence? Well, the first thing is to work out how to get a quarry face, and you can see my experiment here on which I would welcome views. Now what I'm going to do in a moment is take this down onto the bench so that you can see it a bit better. I think what I am going to do though is buy some 2-inch deep foam board, because having looked at pictures of various types of quarry, obviously they're really very deep, much deeper than anything I'm trying to do here. The deepest quarry in the United Kingdom, I think, is one in Wales, which is something like 370 meters tall, which, if I've got my calculations right, equates to 2.5 meters at end scale. So quarries are really very deep, and the faces of them, before they reach an area where they may have been being used to take the stone away, can be really quite long. So I think I've got 5 inches to fill in from here to the level with the board, and I've still yet to work out how I bind it all in, but this is going to make it so much easier. So I think I'm likely to have a 1-inch piece here and possibly 2 or maybe 3 inches, but 2 to 3 inches, and then provide a top that binds in for the board to sit on. But I do need to work out what material is it that's being taken away, and what colour would it look like, given that it's now some 150, 200 years, 150 since the last quarrying will have been done. So what I'm going to do now is take you to the running session of these two trains that are running, which you saw in the last video, but I just didn't have time to do a running session with. Then I'm going to talk about the how I'm making the quarry facing, and I need some help with that, particularly in relation to painting. I've got 2 J50s that I want to show you, so that's another little running session. And then finally I'm going to deal with Pico couplings and Dapol conversion kits before bringing the video to a close. So let's see these trains running around for a little while without me talking. I thought it would make sense to show you this a bit closer than I can when it's on the layout, and about how I'm going about trying to create the quarried face for what will now be the link between High Elven down to the canal basin. And as you can see, this slight patchwork of a cliff face or quarried rock face is my attempts at different kinds of colouring. And I'm trying to work towards whether it would be a stone quarry that was first set up or a slate one, and which this would most likely be similar to. Now, as I said, I did spend a bit of time on the internet looking at various pictures of disused quarries, which were very useful for the purposes of scale, as I think I mentioned earlier. And then I began to think, well, how am I going to make this face? And as you can see, this is Woodland Scenic's foam sheet. It's the 1-inch thickness foam sheet and some offcuts that I had. And it's pieces where I've used the hot wire cutter to cut a curve or something else, and these are just remnants that are left over. Now initially, if I bring you up to here, you can see the look of the face. It leaves it fairly smooth, but with some marks in it, but I didn't think that really looked well enough. So what I decided to do was have at it with one of these, which is just simply the edge of the file, and hack at it in different ways as if quarrying had been working down the face. And I have to say, I'm really quite pleased with that outcome. I did think about covering it in some kind of thin plaster and then working into the plaster. But actually, especially from a distance, this seemed to me to look okay. Now, as I said, what I think I'm probably going to do is get some 2-inch thick board and maybe use 1 or 2 pieces of those to provide the bulk of the facing, because I don't think that would be an extraordinary distance for the face of a quarry, looking at some of the images that I've seen. But what I am pondering about is what colour should it be, really? Now, as you can see, I've had 3 goes at it here. The first layer in every case has been yellow ochre. Gemma, thank you for your instruction video on your channel, Stoney-ole. If you haven't been to see Stoney-ole, you should do. I'll leave a link to the particular video that I'm talking about on the description to this video. And then I went over with burnt umber. At that point, I thought, what do I want? So going from darkest to light. On top of that, I then put a very thin black wash. And that's given me this colour, which I'm not sure if it's like it. It looks more like coal, if anything. It's a bit too dark, I think, for anything that might be quarried. But if anyone has any, unless it was a jet quarry, I suppose, but that's mined, isn't it? Jet rather than quarried. I then went and put over the flat brown that I've used as the basic earth tone everywhere else on that part of the layout. Again, the only thing that's in my mind there is I can't think of any stone that is brown. And even the passage of time wouldn't have so covered the face that you couldn't see either stone or slate clearly. The end one, I used silver grey, a Vallejo silver grey, and I think that's the one I like the most, but I'm still not sure if it gives me quite the right colour. Now, I know among people who watch my videos, and whose videos I equally watch, there are people much more skilled than I am in this kind of thing, which I've not really done before. So I would welcome any views on what kind of colours you think you might want to use or might be best used, and whether this light grey might get me away for a multitude of sins, if you see what I mean. And generally, as I said, I'm happy with the way this is appearing. It looks right to me, as though something mechanical has worked down the face. But again, any views that people have, I'd very much welcome them. The next little section, it's not very long, is just to give you a sight of the J50s running around on my layout. Sonic announced these quite some time ago, and I think they've been heavily delayed by production delays in getting them over to the UK. But they arrived. Now, so far, all I've done is fitted the right-angled decoders, and they work absolutely fine, but they do need some attention with the CV settings, because they set off like startled hares the moment you give them any power. The right-angled Bachmann decoders are not Zimmo. They are Soundtrax MC1 decoders. And as I said, they need a bit of work. I haven't had time to do that yet, but they are beautiful little things, and I thought I'd give you a chance just to have a look at them before we come back here for me to talk about the Dapol decoders. In the last video, I said that I was disappointed that although the new Pico wagons do indeed have NEM pockets so you can remove the coupling, they're not the same as everybody else's. Apparently they do fit some NRMA standard, but not, it would appear, the one that everybody else uses. Just to show you, this is it's on, what is it on? It's on a Farish, I'm not sure what that is. I've lost my students. Oh yes, it's a Holsworth coach. If you look at the pockets on those two things, you will see that the Pico one is very slightly wider. Now that gives a problem in that if it was just a case of the depth of the pocket, you might be able to fit a shim inside that would help it hold. But because it's the width, the NEM couplings from other manufacturers, whether that's the easy-shunt or other manufacturers of these kind of couplings, the pins are not wide enough to engage properly either side. And I don't think there's an easy solution to that. And in any event, I shouldn't need to be going around fitting shims and things to make them standard with other manufacturers' products. And I thought that was pretty much it, really. I would have to go and find somebody else's product, and where I did have the right size NEM pockets, and use those. Again, the power of YouTube. A number of people, in particular Mr. Ireland, who gave me a call, and Ewan Chalmers from Blackwood, told me about something that I didn't know existed, which was conversion kits to allow you to convert wagons that do not have NEM pockets to ones that do. Now, I was pointed in the direction of some things on eBay, and I merrily went off and bought something on eBay, which is not the wrong thing, but it's not the whole thing. So what I have, which you can see here, is the replacement item that I will be fitting. Excuse me a moment, let me just get that up. There we go. This is the basic pocket, which I'm going to attach to the wagon. This is the insert which actually holds the clip and provides the tension, which fits inside there. And these are different height shims to help you fit this on at the right height so that the coupling is the right height. The thing that I didn't order, let me bring them properly into focus. The thing that I didn't order was the starter kit, which gives you the little device that helps you fix the height at which you need to, which of these shims you need to put on to get the height right to make the coupling work. So that's on its way to me. And once it's here, I have the wagon that is going to be the first to be converted. Now this is one of the Pico kits. It's of a northeastern style guards van or brake van. They're very simple, and I did these earlier on, and I keep meaning to go back and finish it and paint it properly and fit decals and things, and never get around to it. But they are very easy to put together. The wheels pop out and you'll see, I think, the two small screws. I have bought a while ago a 3.2mm nut spinner, or I think they're 3/8 of an inch, these nuts. I did ask Pico, which is a non-standard size. Most of the nut spinners that you get in kits tend to be metric, and they're either 3mm or 3.5. Well, 3mm you can wedge it in and sort of get a tension on it. 3.5 just spins round. So the 3.2 allows you to work quite nicely. So I will be taking this apart and using it as a donor vehicle. These will need to be cut off, and then we will fit the new coupling to the right height to enable this to work, he said. So I'm reliably assured that it's a fairly straightforward thing to do. I hope that is true, but we shall see, because when I come to do this, I will film me taking this apart and doing this, so that you can see how the thing works. Other Pico wagons, the proprietary ones, are almost identical to this. So if I can get it to work on this kit one, it will be exactly the same, though you may have to be a bit more careful in how you take it apart, particularly if anything has been attached from the body to the sole bar or below the sole bar. So with that, let's go back onto the layout to bring the video to an end. Well, here you can see the two J50s just running along. They really are lovely little models. I think, as I said earlier, I can't remember what I did say earlier, the CVs do need to be looked at. These are the right-angled Bachmann chips, which they do start off like startled hares, even on the 128 speed steps. But a little while playing around with the CVs, I think we'll have them running just as I want them. That really brings this video to a close. So we've covered quite a lot of ground, and I hope over the next week, next couple of weeks, really to get on with building the quarry face to connect High Elven. And I think what I'm going to do, if I just move around, is that where you can see the test piece, I think that middle section is going to be the quarried area. Probably half of that complete length, and that I will put pretty permanent hillside in either side that had not yet been quarried, not least because I need to put a tunnel portal in at each end, and that will then provide the base for the top to sit on, and the middle section is the one where I'm probably going to try and make it so that I can remove that if I need to get underneath that central area, because the other benefit of it being styrofoam that's going to go in there is that I think I can make that so that I can do a removable section, because I will need to be able to do that to unhook everything if in the unlikely event that I have to completely remove the top section. Because once I've got all of that built in, it will probably change where the road goes as it comes down, but not by very much. Then I can really start work on High Elven at the top, get the magnets in and the shunting, and also start doing the scenic work up there, because this last section of the layout is really the last bit that needs major work. Lots of other places I've got to go back to. I've not finished the gasworks, not finished yet the schoolyard. The area around the depot needs me to come back and do finishing, but the raw basic building is all in this quarter of the layout now. So with that, if you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, well, please do subscribe, because it would be really nice to have you along. And of course, if you've got any comments, please do let me have them. I think if this video demonstrates anything, it is the power of the comments of people who can see something that I can't, that have just helped me enormously in all sorts of ways, including Arthur with his suggestion for the quarry face at High Elven. But until I speak to you again in about a fortnight's time, that's goodbye from me. Bye bye.